Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to talk about Godzilla and whether or not the 5-year gap affected Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, this is interesting. I found an article by the famous Scott Mendelson. Some of you might remember back in 2014, he's the one from Forbes magazine, or Forbes, the website, who predicted that 2014 would be a flop. In fact, obviously he was wrong. But, very interesting enough, he did write a pretty good article regarding why Godzilla King of the Monsters may not have performed very well at the box office this year. And I got to say, while I most times don't agree with Scott Mendelson on his takes on movies, in fact, he seems to be very out of touch at times, I got to say this article, he was much more, I believe, closer to accurate than he has been in quite some time. I'll leave the article in the description for you guys to read yourself, but basically he points out some of the factors that he thinks might have contributed to Godzilla King of the Monsters underperforming. And one of the ones he mentioned was the 5-year gap. And more than anything, he went into a little bit more detail. And I did, even on earlier today's stream this morning, when talking about Godzilla King of the Monsters, we did talk about the 5-year gap playing a role as to why the movie might have suffered a little bit. And what he did mention, which I thought was interesting and I thought were very good points, were the number of monster-related movies in between 2014 and King of the Monsters. And he mentioned, obviously, Rampage, even Kong Skull Island. Some of the other ones he mentioned here, let me just pull them up real quick. Have right here in front of me, Pacific Rim sequel, which he also highlighted was not helped by its 5-year gap as well. So, and he pointed out how that, the first movie didn't do that great to begin with, and then another 5 years before the sequel, which obviously did not help Pacific Rim Uprising. And then he also talked about other movies like Jurassic World, which is a bigger name brand than Godzilla, especially here in the States. And then, of course, he mentioned Rampage, and he also mentioned The Meg, which, while it's not a kaiju movie, is a monster-related movie. That was his point. He said monster-related, not necessarily kaiju. And he spoke about how in all these other movies, there were certain characters that were standouts, which he believed Godzilla King of the Monsters lacked. And I have to kind of agree with him there. When you look at Rampage, The Rock was, outside of the monsters, The Rock was a standalone shining character in that movie. Jason Statham and Li Bingbing, he mentioned how they were standouts in their respective movie. He talked about Kong Skull Island with a nice ensemble of, John Goodman, Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, things of that nature. He also mentioned that he believes the factor was also the night battles, which we've heard this complaint from many people, that the battles were taking place in dark elements with a lot of not practical effects, but like weather elements, like the rain, the snow. And he highlighted how in Kong Skull Island it was much more palatable because of the day shots, the day fights with, like Kong and things of that nature. So I thought he brought up some pretty interesting points that on a more smaller detail level could have contributed to the struggle. Now, the 5-year gap overall is hurtful. He felt, and surprisingly he spoke about this, he felt that whatever steam Godzilla picked up with the first movie and its success, he believed that the 5-year gap and the monster movies in between helped it lose steam. So I thought it was an interesting article you guys might want to check out. I think he brings up some fair points. Again, I have to give credit where credit's due. While I don't often like his articles, and I do think he's more disconnected than oftentimes he's disconnected, I do think he brings up some valid points in this particular article regarding why the movie struggled. And he does believe that Kong, he's curious, but I think he feels optimistic that Godzilla vs. Kong will bring back the success of their Legendary's approach to $160 to $170 million budget movies with a $550 to $600 million take, which is a comfortable, profitable take home when you invest that much in a movie and then you're making back about $600 million worldwide. So, and then he also mentioned, again, I wanted to talk about Jurassic Park. He mentioned how in Jurassic World, you have characters like Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, who were standouts. He felt that Godzilla King of the Monsters lacked that kind of standout character, that their choice to put Kyle Chandler front and center wasn't a bad choice. What was bad was that they made him a Gary Stu. And that was another complaint we heard about the movie regarding him being like the know-it-all and having the answer to everything, not only scientifically, but even military. And I can't disagree there. You know, I wasn't one to complain about how he was a Gary Stu. You know, much like Force Awakens, I was accepting of Rey learning the Force naturally. I took the same approach with Kyle Chandler's character. I was very much aware that he had the answer to everything, but I was willing to just kind of look by that. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people, they see that and they see the one character that has all the answers. And if you've established a character to be a certain expert in one field, but then he starts making suggestions for others, that doesn't always work. I think it does work for certain actors, like someone like The Rock, you know, but someone like Kyle Chandler, who doesn't necessarily always play like a super action hero, for him to come out as a scientist that knows a lot about the orca, a lot about the monsters, but then he starts making suggestions for the military, I can understand that. Some people could look by it. I was one of those people. Most people cannot. So, and he pointed that out. And again, I think that's a fair criticism. So I think I think the 5-year gap, like I said in this morning's stream, I'm more and more convinced as time progresses that was a big factor, especially now more than anything when he breaks it down the way he does, when he talks about all the monster related movies that have come out in between. So very interesting take. So I got to give credit where credit's due. I think he wrote a decent article here. I think you guys should definitely check it out, and it might give a better understanding to you as to why the movie was not as successful as it could have been, and also whether or not that's something that's going to carry over with Godzilla versus Kong. I don't think it will. I think Kong will help carry his end of the bargain. I think Godzilla will still bring in enough of the people for them combined to make a good movie that will do well at the box office. But in terms of Godzilla King of the Monsters, I just thought it was a good point that he brought up, because when I thought about the 5-year gap, I wasn't really thinking about all the movies that came out in between that and all the stars that were in those monster-related movies, like Jason Statham and The Rock and, you know, Chris Pratt, things of that nature. And comparing that to Kyle Chandler is definitely a renowned actor, but he's not commonly known for super action movies. And furthermore, he was presented in Godzilla King of the Monsters as an all scientist kind of character, studying certain animals and their actions and how they, you know, how certain species carry themselves as packs and hunt together and things of that nature. But then he's the one that manages to get the plane to land onto the Argo. He's the one that comes up with solutions as to where the military should go and things of that nature. So interesting take. Wanted to give some credit to that, and then give you guys the link, let you guys read the article, and then see what you have to say in the comment section. Anyway, that's it for this video. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.